Okay, so, last time on Gran Turismo 4, we did the Pan Euro Championship. And as a result of us doing this, we now have just 2 championship events to go, for now, in Europe. And if you're asking me what I'm going to do about the 1000 miles tournament, well, that'll be coming up for a later date, but not before. And I've decided for the German Touring Car Championship, I'm going to use this thing, the Alfa Romeo 155 V6 Ti. Ironically, the same 155 that won the DTM Championship and the British Touring Car Championship, both at the same time, even though they were 2 different models. You know, there's one thing I can say about this car, well, it's got a lot of revs. And I think for that reason, and I know I probably don't need this, but do I really need it? I probably don't. Okay, you know what? I don't think we need any tuning on this thing. We should be fine the way it is. So let's head over to the European events and get on with the German Touring Car Championship. Right, okay. As I now know from this, tyre wear is going to be a factor, at least for the first race. Because if there's one thing I know about this thing, it's that it really likes to chew up the tyres. So, after my first attempt basically went in shambles with the way it just started and finished, I've decided this time I'm just going to put tyres on this thing, because it will need them. And yes, I will make sure to get myself the turbo this time. Even though it's expensive, I figure it's something that I might need in reserves just in case. And I think that should be everything we need. So, hopefully this time I can manage to approach the German Touring Car Championship with an element of readiness. So here we are. Deutsche Touring Car Meisterschaft, also known as the DTM, more or less. So 75 grand if we win. These are some of the cars that you can enter this event with, or cars that have competed in the DTM prior. 15 grand depending on how many races we win, and 75 grand if we can win the championship overall. So, for want of a better phrase, if you're looking to sweep the championship, the maximum you can win is a total of 150 grand. As we're heading to Opera Paris, Midfield Raceway, High Speed Ring, Nürburgring, and last but not least, Fuji Speedway 05. So, without further ado, and on my second attempt, let's begin. The peak of touring car racing, with unrivaled intensity of competition. Let's go. So this is now attempt 2 of this race, because, well, last time I did this, the race started off in the worst way imaginable, and that was with my controller basically disconnecting right when the race started. I made sure it was plugged back in, and I'm hopeful in saying that this time the controller will not conk itself out on me again like it did before. And in all honesty, I just didn't like the way my run was looking. And then, once I noticed my tyre degradation meter was in the orange zone, that was when I knew I had to reset the game and fit myself with the racing hards instead of the racing mediums. Because, on this car at least, I now know that tyre wear is going to be a problem, and that's why I fitted the racing hards. So this is our competition. So we've got another 155, along with the Opel Astra, the Opel Calibra, the Audi TT-R, well, the apt Audi TT-R, and a Mercedes 190e Evo 2. I don't think qualifying is really needed, so let's try and see what we do. And 113 points. I know I'm going to be down on grip, but again, because I know this car likes to eat up the tyres, okay, and no such problems with my controller this time around. So hopefully I will not get smoked by the AI this time. Or at the very least by the leading Astra. Okay. Things are going a lot better this time than they were before. Because my controller is actually responding to me. And therefore talking to me. In terms of my fingers and... in terms of my fucking... fingers and thumbs... in terms of my... well, I guess you could say fingers and thumbs responding to the car in question. Which, by the way, is my car, if you're asking. Okay, and tyre wear is now much less of a problem here than it was before. And now, here's to hoping that we can manage to get this one right. So, ducking up the inside of the Astra, I have established that I think tyre wear is going to be a problem here. After, prior to this attempt, my car went all the way into the orange zone, which is basically the unwanted territory when it comes to these types of races. Tyre wear is probably the last issue I need for this. And because this car just has so many RPMs, it's honestly just amazing to think that the use of having to shift this car down to first gear is more often than you think. And that's not just because there are certain bumps on this track that will catch you out. I'm honestly not surprised to say I saved that, because I kind of knew that sooner or later one of these bumps was inevitably going to force me into that type of ordeal. But either way, we seem to be doing well so far. I am more or less keeping the Opel Astra at this point at bay, and here's to hoping that it can stay that way. At least until the 155 starts having significant tyre trouble at this point. Because I have a feeling tyre trouble probably is going to be a thing before the end of this. I almost wonder if I might be compromised, because I went for the more durable tyres here, and for that reason the car basically is just getting loose a lot more often than it should be. I'm not letting that Astra pass me. Not until I've cleared that other Alfa Romeo, who I know is going to be having tyre troubles sooner rather than later. Also, something else about the Euro Series in this game is that I've already driven 3 Alfa Romeos if you include this one. So it's fair to say that for most of these it's almost been an Alfa Romeo show. At least for, well, virtually a quarter of these. Or, more likely, a third of these. And making sure that time I did not overshoot the corner. And we both end up in the wall. And up the inside. And, yep. We are battling. He tries to shut the door on me, but I was right alongside him when we got into the corner. So here's to hoping I can manage to topple him. And running wide off that corner exit, but the Alpha gets a little bit loose there, and that now gives me the lead with 2 laps to go. And oh boy, has this race been crazy. But I have managed to pass the other 155 with my more durable tyres. And as a result, I have now well and truly taken the lead. And I think it's only going to be a matter of time before the Opel behind us manages to take over second place. I'm now well clear of the other 155 as we head through that left-handed kink once again. You basically have got to lift in order to get through that corner in most cars. There isn't realistically a way you can take that corner flat out. But either way, I think we seem to be doing okay. Sure, my lap times might be suffering, but at least I can say I have a car that's more durable. And that to me is most likely the main thing. And this race is still pretty close. And looks like the 155 is trying to catch back up to me, but I don't know if he will. So yeah, if there is one thing I can say about this car, it's that there are certain bumps that this car simply just does not like riding over. And I think it's fair to say at this point that's definitely become a reoccurring theme, especially here at Upper Paris, with some oddly positioned bumps. Which for some of these tight corners, it's almost pretty darn difficult to get through some of these corners. But either way, doesn't matter because I get the win with my more durable tyres. And what do you know? the Audi also wound up joining the party in the end because my fellow Alfa Romeo was able to block the Astra for long enough, and that was what got me to the win. And then at the back, well, the other Mercedes, well, it's just being the other Mercedes. But yeah, if you do decide to use this card, then I would advise you put on racing hard tyres, just so you can make it to the end without any real issues. But anyway, that was race 1, so let's now move on to race 2. At Midfield Raceway. And since we're on the normal course, I'm convinced in saying that the bumps should not provide too many issues here from what I know. But if they do wind up giving me any problems, then well, we'll just have to wait and see how the rest of this race goes. Was I actually given a bump draft there? Something tells me I was. But either way, doesn't matter because I am now making overtakes for the first time, as I've now moved up into P4 and looking now to see if I can get up to P3. I do get up to P3. Not quite the double pass, but still able to at least keep myself in the fight. 1 second is the gap to the leading Alfa Romeo, and that's a wall. And just like that, at the end of the first lap, I basically go from last to first. So, that's actually not a bad run. And well, because this course is faster, and there's more space to pull off overtakes here compared to last time out at Opera Paris, there's a bit more room for passing here than there was at Opera Paris. But I was able to surgically thread my way up to the front of the field, and then eventually, as you all know of course, I wound up winning the race. Because I had a lot less drama. Compared to before. So I think it's fair to say that at this time we seem to be pretty Gucci. And the gap is now 4.2 seconds, well, 4.25 seconds, I should say, to the Opel Astra. And getting through that left-right kink, and looks as though we are going to be having a bit more of a lenient race compared to before, as I now lead this thing by probably 7 seconds by now, or at the very least 6. Okay, 6. And in terms of grip, that is still a bit of a struggle because I'm on harder tyres, but either way, that's okay because it still helps me to get to the end with a more durable set of tyres that seem to be helping me at this stage. And now I am steadily pulling away from the Opel Astra, as it would seem at this stage. And I'm strongly convinced in saying we're going to get to the end of this one pretty easily, judging by the pace I'm currently setting. And I overshoot the corner. But either way, there's no real use in going into the red zone at this point with my rev counter. I pretty much have a quite distant lead up front, so I'd say we should be fine at this stage. So 7.8 seconds is now the gap as we begin our penultimate circuit of Midfield Raceway. And still setting pretty reasonable times, and I'm also pulling away because of my more durable tyres. So it's fair to say that the turbo kit probably wasn't needed, but at the same time, if these European events have taught me anything, it's knowing that most of these are going to require me to put on some sort of tuning in order to realistically have a shot at completing most of these events. And I think it's fair to say that with the tyre woes I was having before, I think it was obvious to say that something had to be done. So 9.6 seconds is now the gap, so I think that means I'm going to have at least a 10-second victory by the time I get to the end of this, because I am steadily churning away from the AI, and as my tyre damage meter approaches the yellow zone, we should more or less be okay for the rest of this thing. Again, Midfield Raceway in the other direction, it's quite bumpy, but in this direction at least, you will have a smoother ride in terms of getting across the bumps, and over the line I set a 113 flat, and as a result my more durable tyres have become my benefactor, and winning by almost 12 seconds in the end over the Astra. So that was a pretty good run. And that now moves the Opel Astra up to P2, whereas the other Alfa Romeo now drops down to P3. And, well, the bottom two, they're still the bottom two. And I highly doubt that's going to change. So another 15 grand as ours. And altogether, that actually felt pretty good. Have I saved a replay at the Nürburgring recently? I figure it might as well be worth a look, just whilst I'm here. No, I haven't. I might actually consider saving my next replay at the Nürburgring. Anyway, 2 races down, and we still have another 3 races to go. As we are now at High Speed Ring Reverse for the virtual halfway point of this championship, and getting some more wheel spin off the line, but either way, because this thing is 4-wheel drive, the wheel spin is limited, as I tuck in behind the Opel Calibra and make sure to give the Merc plenty of space on the inside so he doesn't run into me again like he did before. And already just like that, I move up into P2. And that was right before the bastard gave me a shot of oversteer. But either way, I'd say we're doing okay. Oh, shit. Fuck me. Why am I not surprised? Well, fortunately for me at least, my more durable tyres will probably help me to get to the end. And since High Speed Ring is not really that much of a benefactor for the AI, I don't think it's going to take me too long to make up 6 seconds to catch up to the rest of the pack. Because the rest of the pack is pretty close to one another. So that tells me we should have a chance at this thing. I hope, anyway. So the gap is now 5 seconds, as I've immediately made up 1.7 seconds in 2 sector splits alone. And had it not been for me getting caught out with oversteer and then with the AI bumping me off the track, it's fair to say that I probably would have taken the lead by now, but either way, it's okay. It was probably my fault for the oversteer anyway. It was going to happen at some point. And I'm well into the 180s when I'm in the draft of another car here. I honestly thought for sure this car had a top speed of about 180, but I honestly wasn't expecting this thing to go about as fast as 190. And as I would have expected, I quickly take over the lead here at High Speed Ring. And it looks as though the Audi TTR is now trying to see if he can make a pass for second place. So I think it's fair to say we're doing okay at this time. And up to this point, we seem to be pulling away. After I set a blistering lap 2 around High Speed Ring, I have now taken over with a durably comfortable lead. And this was in spite of me spinning out early on, but I kind of figured, because of how fast my car was, as I already know, it would only be a matter of time before I would take over the lead. Again, I do accept the blame for that moment of oversteer I had of that right-hander. We were also in a banked corner, so it wouldn't have surprised me too much if hitting the wall would have been what happened, and, well, as fate would have it, that's pretty much what happened. And so, I now have, I think, a 6-second lead now over the Opel Astra. And I think it's fair to say that we're probably going to win this relatively comfortably, because we do technically have what the Americans would call a bad fast car. And that's pretty much what we have here, as I'm now leading by 6.5 seconds as we head through the right-hander. And it looks as though everything from here is going great. So, through the last right-hander here at high speed ring reverse, and there we go, 3 races swept, and 2 of them with comfortable winning margins. Yeah, 1-2 for the Alphas. Let's go. Let's fucking go. That must have been quite a battle for second. But either way, I still had a pretty easy win because of my more durable tyres. And now it looks as though this second and third battle is probably going to keep swinging back and forth, because the 155 now takes over again from the Astra. Although I do believe the Astra probably will get P2 by the time we get to the end of this thing. Because I think what's probably going to be the wildcard race for this championship is going to no doubt be the Nürburgring. And since it is only 1 lap, well, tyre wear is not going to be a concern, from what I can understand at least. So we could be in for quite a challenge. But I still believe the clean sweep is possible, as we are now at the Nürburgring. And no, I'm not going to change tyres on this thing because, well, I still believe it's the tyre durability that's been helping me to win these races up to this point, so there's no real point in changing those, as far as I can see. And here we go for our 1 lap of the Nürburgring. In our high-revving Alfa Romeo 155. Get on the curbs, but able to correct the car's position relatively quickly, so stability is not a problem. Off to a decent-ish start from what I can see, which is better than usual from what I can see here at the Nürburgring. And the top 2 have just pulled away, so it's possible to say that we could be in for quite a battle here, like we were before. The last time we were here at the Nürburgring. And getting on the brakes just as I hit 176 through that right-hander. I know that most of the time, unless you have a really good handling car, it's not worth it to go flat out through that corner unless you want to risk killing yourself first. However, that's not what I am intent on doing here. As I am now just a matter of feet behind the two leaders. And the gap is now 2.2 seconds. And now the Audi is right behind me, but I'm not going to let him pass. So it looks as though this could be a tricky one, because, well, if there's one thing I know about the Nürburgring, aside from it being super long compared to most of the tracks I go to, it's also narrow, which means the shots I'll get of overtaking my opponents are not going to be many. At least not without me intentionally or unintentionally crashing them, and them intentionally or unintentionally crashing me. Both instances are very commonplace here at the Nürburgring. In 0.7 of a second, I quickly blitz the Opel Astra with my slipstream. The slipstream, of course, is very powerful around here if you're able to catch enough of the tailwind. And just like that, I am now in the lead, as it has taken me quite literally half a lap to get to the front of the field. But as ever, I don't have to worry about dealing with basically setting a blistering pace this time around, unlike what I had in the Super License, where I think I probably had to hit a low 7+ minute time in order for me to get the gold. But because we're not in the license center anymore, it's fair to say that my pace does not need to be anywhere near as fast as what I set at the end of the Super License before. Anyway, looks as though this race is probably going to end up like all the others did before, where it's basically my more durable tyres that get me to the end, and also give me the overall advantage in terms of scoring the win. And as long as I can keep my car on the track for just long enough, except for that point there, then I think we should be fine. Had a little bit of a miscue there, but in the long run, however, I think we should be fine. It was just a minor lapse of concentration, but I think it's fair to say my car is very much in position to once again set another blistering level of pace in front of the rest of the field. And I do believe what I hear in the sound effects there is probably a tailwind. But either way, it shouldn't really matter because we are still very much looking like the winners here. If I hit 175 going down that backstretch, even though the top speed I set here was 176, but either way, at the end of the lap, I set a 7:11.6, and I win in the end by 5.5 seconds over the Alfa Romeo, and the Opel Astra finished P3 with the Audi in P4. So I think it's fair to say we could get a 1-2 once we come out of the next race at Fuji, from what I can see. Especially since I am nearly double the points of everyone else up to this stage. So if the 155 finishes third at Fuji, third or better at Fuji, then it's going to be a 1-2 for the Alfa Romeos from what I can see. But altogether, it is nice to know that further back we do have a pretty compelling battle for P2. But either way, that was not intended. Okay. Yep. And yes. Yeah, episode 65. Saved at the Nürburgring. Because why the fuck not? Because these are German touring cars. And at the Nürburgring, well, it makes sense. Okay, final race of the Deutsche Touring Car Meisterschaft. Don't really think I need to say anything else. The top two positions in the championship have more or less been cinched by now, barring a few miscues, but at this point, well, it looks like it's going to be pretty much Alfa Romeo supremacy over everyone else. So 5 laps around the revamped Fuji Speedway. Ironically, the same design the track has had more or less since 2005. So yes, for want of a better phrase, this layout of the course now quite literally is 20 years old. And I'm having quite a battle at the moment with the other Alfa Romeo. He did have a 3-point advantage over the Astra heading into this race, so as long as he finishes on the podium, then I reckon he's got a really good shot of making this an Alfa Romeo 1-2, from what I can see. And he's going to try and pass me on the outside. Might as well give him the running room if he is going to be alongside me. I figured he was going to have the advantage, so I might as well just give him room to run on the outside. since he did pass me both fairly and evenly. And getting a little bump from behind there, but able to more or less hold on to my position with no real issues. We are putting up quite a fight here with one another for the race lead, and now it probably looks like that fight is either going to end here or it's going to continue. This could wind up being somewhat similar to that battle I had with the... This could wind up being somewhat similar to that battle I had with the Hummel Berlinetta at Monaco, where I wound up winning, and it looks as though I've now broken free from the threshold of the 155, so the battle ended prematurely, but at least I can say the other 155 is doing everything he needs to do in order to well and truly cinch P2. He did have a pretty sizable gap over the Astra heading into this race, so the odds of the Astra finishing this championship P2, especially after Nürburgring, were pretty slim. But either way, it looks as though on this day... Okay, it's alright, it's fine. But it looks as though on this day it will be 1-2 for the Alfa Romeo 155s, for which there are two of us. And I just happen to be one of them because, well, I really wanted to use this car. Also because, well, the BMW M3 GTR, whilst I could have used that, it also would have made this a little too easy in my opinion. Because, well, the M3 GTR I think has 440 horsepower, plus the M3 GTR competed in the American Le Mans series. He did not compete in the DTM, where it basically went on and well, the BMW M3 GTR, when it came in to the American Le Mans series, or ALMS for short, the M3 GTR basically dominated the series by winning 7 out of 10 races. And yes, I did watch a clip to find out how precisely the BMW M3 GTR got such an advantage over its main rival during the 2001 season, the Porsche 911 RSR. A car itself that more or less is still competing in touring car events even today, but the Porsches, well, they are not as dominant as they used to be. Even though there are exclusive Porsche racing categories. But either way, here we are. We continue our domination here at Fuji. So, still got another lap to go, and it appears as though we are very much going to be on our way to what should be another easy win. even though I have noticed the Astra is closing in on me. But I don't think he's going to catch me in time. He has more or less set the pace here at Fuji to end this off. He's basically going to try and see if he can catch up to me, but I don't think he's going to have enough time before the end of this. It is nice to know that we will have at least a close finish to end this off, but either way, it looks as though my durable tyres will score me the win yet again. I could have toughed it out with the mediums if I really wanted to, but because of just how repugnant my original attempt was at this, the Astra is closer to me than I think he is. But I'm convinced in saying he's not close enough to get me. But because my first attempt was pretty much repugnant, I figured it was just easier for me to put on the racing hards, so that tyre wear would not be an issue when it came to pulling these off, and it's going to be a clean sweep in the DTM Championship. By 3.2 seconds. And I think that means the Astra, if I recall correctly, I think has finished P2 in the standings, or it could be a tiebreaker. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see what the case is. Yeah, this is going to be a tiebreaker. But I'm not sure who's going to get the tiebreaker altogether. Oh, the Astra. It must have been because the other 155 had 2 fourth-placed finishers, both at midfield and also at... I'm going to assume it must be because the 155 had 2 fourth-placed finishers, whereas the Astra had more podiums in the end. I think that's probably what gave the Astra the tiebreaker. And 75 grand for winning altogether, and we have now passed 1 million credits. And it's taken me 65 episodes, figuratively, to get this far. So, the Opel Astra takes P2 in the standings after the 155 fell back to 4th with his tyre troubles. So, the Astra gets the tiebreaker over the Alpha, then it's the Audi TTR who takes P4 over the Opel Calibra in P5, who finished 5th every race, and the guy who finished last in all 5 races was, of course, well, the AMG Mercedes 190E Evolution 2. Sucks to suck, I guess. Anyway, I figured this was more or less going to be the car that was going to win me this, and just had to check and see that I did save a replay, and that's all good. So, now let's go and check out our prize car for this event. So for winning the DTM Championship, we are going to get the AMG Mercedes CLK GTR. Ironically, a car that dominated the FIA GT Championship by winning all but 1 race, if I recall correctly. But either way, I could have some usage for this thing a little later on, as you'll find out soon enough. Okay, anyway. There we go. So, clean sweep in the German Touring Car Championship. And now, all that's left for us to do is the British GT Series. And then a bit later on, I will go through the 1000 miles tournament, which is going to be where we will finish the European events. But not until a bit later on because, well, I have other things to attend to first, as you'll find out. But anyway, you know. So we are now past the 40% mark, so we're 2/5 of the way there, and we are now over 500 days into this game, and we've now passed 1100 miles driven, and we've now reached 85.7% on our win ratio as a result of our clean sweep. And I've now earned over 2 million credits in prize winnings. So, let's go and find... Oh, we've now driven 50 cars up to this point. Anyway, let's now try and find our Merc. Here it is. The Merc CLK GTR, which we can sell for a staggering 743,000 credits. I'm obviously not going to do that. But either way, that's what we get. So, this is probably a car that I will use sooner rather than later, as you'll find out soon enough. But anyway, that was the German Touring Car Championship, and next time we will be doing the British GT Series. Stay tuned for the next one.